Mentorship Network.
All right.
Right here live every
is.
Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we've got representation from the brothership as well.
Whoop, whoop.
Bringing everybody up in here as our first show of the season. We're very excited about the season. We have a lot going on coming into the second season as we talk about different topics that affect everybody in the current climate. So I want to welcome everybody back to the Sistership Network, our second season. Again, very excited about it. With that said, I'm going to introduce our hosts, our guest today. So quickly going around the room, Mama C, very happy to have you
everyone.
back.
I am so glad to be here to kick off our second season. I think that everyone is really going to enjoy the topics, and here we keep it real. So we also want you to participate by calling in whenever you have a question or a comment you'd like to share on the topic, and that number is 888-304-4401. We are interested in your opinion, and this is all about helping to magnify, multiply, and maximize the quality of your life.
Amen. Amen. And this is your girl, Steph Fire, going around the room again, the brothership, Mr. DJ Jersey.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here and looking forward to the discussion. So we'll go around the room.
Happy to have the
All
brothership
right.
in the house, in studio,
Always.
by the way,
Yeah.
in studio. And our lovely other co-host here, Kalima Green Lady K.
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be back for the second season of the Sistership. We're going to be dropping a lot of nuggets on this past season. I'm excited.
I'm
Me
excited,
too. I'm getting
excited.
chills thinking about it.
I know we got a lot of jewels we're going to drop today, but I'm going to hold that to the shows because we have somebody else. We have a guest today. Introduce yourself.
That's right.
This is JSC Lady S. I'm joining you guys here from New Jersey. I'm hoping to bring some light to the table on our topic. And anybody have some questions or comments, feel free to call us in.
Awesome. So just so you have a little bit of history of Miss Lady S over here, that's actually my sister. I have about 3 sisters. I'm the eldest, okay, because I'm the eldest here. But we all got some knowledge from our experiences, as we all do here on the sistership and the brothership.
Absolutely.
So I got the real sister here, and then my other sisters here, and then my husband. So with that said, again, welcome everybody back to the Sistership Network. We're starting off with talking about our first topic, talking about jobs versus careers, the pros and cons of a job versus a career. Now, this is a very interesting discussion and so many different perspectives on the topic, and so many perspectives that others out in the audience have. And we want to just enlighten you on the whole topic, because there's sometimes misconceptions on, the job versus career. Does a job lead into a career? Or do you work on dead-end jobs, and does a job lead to this or that or what have you? So I just wanted to quickly just kind of dive right in here and talk about, when you think of career, and I'll be going around the room here because, again, we have many different perspectives on this. When people think of a job, they think of just getting into it, and it depends on where you are in your journey, right?
Right.
Coming in right off the bat, either at a college or at a high school or what have you. Job is there to give you money. You need income. Got to live, right?
Gotta live.
Right.
So you start off with the
A job.
perspective of getting a job, right?
Mhm.
But then a career, totally different perspective, because a career, you could lead into a career. A career is a lifelong journey, right? It's not just a thing that you change here and there. Jobs you can change all the time. Careers are a mission.
Right.
Absolutely.
In life.
And like you, Darren, Tiffany, and I had this we did a show yesterday at your house, sitting and dining, and we talked about this, and, a job is a stepping stone. You got to think of a job as a stepping stone to where you want to go, but you need to understand where you want to go when you get that job? You know, what is it that you want to achieve once you enter that organization?
Mhm.
You know, I know, and I was sharing with them, and I think I've shared this before. When I got my job at North General Hospital, I went in as a medical transcriptionist. That was a stepping stone. That wasn't a job that I had planned to be in for long. I had my eyes were on the prize, you know, moving into a career that would help to elevate the quality of my life. Because what people don't realize, jobs don't offer much leeway when it comes to increase in salary. You know, you may get an annual increase, but it's so low, it's not keeping up with the quality of life or the, you know, economic picture,
Right.
the true economic picture. So I went as a medical transcriptionist a couple of years, not even a couple of years, 6 months later, I became an executive secretary. 3 years later, I became special assistant to the president. And then a couple of years later after that, I designed a wellness program for women, and I became the director of that program. And so I started my career, my job there at $15,000 a year, which was not much.
Yeah.
And by the time I left 20 years ago, I was making close to $80,000. It was 79 and some change, you know, but more change, close to 80. So, you know, if I hadn't used that entry position as a stepping stone and got into that position and stayed there, I would not have made the economic gains that I made.
Right.
So, you know, I think it's mindset, you know, a mindset. My mindset was, I'm going in to advance. I know what I want, and I know what I need to do in order to achieve the quality of life I wanted for myself and my daughter. So, you know, people have to look at the picture, the whole picture, and decide from there, okay, am I just going to sit on this stone, or am I going to go from stepping stone to stepping stone to stepping stone, and then start elevating up that ladder and, you know, break through that glass ceiling and keep going, you know? And there comes a point, and I think, Darren, you made this point yesterday. There comes a point where you say, okay, I'm satisfied now. I'm good, you know, but you're never going to be good if you go in to that stepping stone and you just sit there. And I think people need to understand that you gotta have a plan.
That's actually a good point, because I was actually reading this. Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress.
Oh, absolutely.
Working hard for something we love is called passion.
Yep.
And that's where the beginning of your career path, because if you're passionate about something, that can lead into your career aspirations, right? If you're coming in and, you know, you don't care, that's just a job. And if it's a job, you're going to get stress, because that's your mentality. You just said that. It's your mentality towards that.
Absolutely.
Let me ask this, because there's so many different views on education and how we look at training from, you know, you could get training on a job, right? On the job training, everybody heard that. How about when we talk about careers? So let's talk about education, because that's a stepping stone. And most, like, as parents, right? You all are, well, except us, but as parents, but we educate.
You're still parents to somebody.
We are parents to somebody. Let's talk about education for a moment.
I want to interject real quick.
Mhm.
People have to understand, like you said, kind of, again, it's all about perspective.
Mhm.
So this education and everything, it just depends on how you're viewing it.
Absolutely.
So when
That's
Mama
right.
C shared her story, how she went from this and this and this, because she already had vision. She's a visionary. Not everybody can carry that gift. But if you are a person that may struggle in an area, it is good to see someone like her,
Yes.
the visionary, because she already implanted the blueprint.
Right.
So she has something established. So if they wanted to go there, at least they could say, oh, she made it. Well, let me just see what the steps is, and that's how many steps just to get there. So there are some people who need that. So again, visionaries are very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, and that's the education right there.
Yeah.
By
That's
itself.
the growth for our
Absolutely.
youth.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
exactly what it is. It's the growth for our youth.
Oh, absolutely. And I think people need to understand, before I got into took that first step onto that stone at the hospital, I was on public assistance. Okay? I'm not, there ain't no shame in my game, but I use public assistance to help me get where I wanted to get. While I was on public assistance, I had dropped out of high school. I mean, my childhood was really stressful and difficult. So, I used to head out to school but never make it there. But I could go to school and pass tests and get A's because I was smart,
Right.
But I was not smart enough to understand at the time that I needed to stay in school. And when I left for school, go to school, and graduate. So I had to go back and get while I was on public assistance, I went back, got my GED. Then I went on and went to a technical college and got an associate degree in secretarial science. And then I went on to another technical school and got training in terminology, medical terminology. Because I said, okay, if I'm going I want to go into a hospital, but I think I need the terminology. So I went and got the terminology. Then I applied for a job, got that first job I applied for. I got a notice a week or so later to recertify for public assistance. At that time, I said I no longer needed it, sent them the form. I knew I was working a job. I wasn't trying to hold on to public assistance and a job. I wasn't trying to go to jail, okay? That wasn't on my game plan.
Right.
So, whether you're on public assistance or you're getting some kind of help from somewhere, use that help wisely to help you elevate your life.
I love that you brought that into, because so many people are challenged because they are on public assistance and they're challenged with children and having to manage a job versus, taking care of home and family and things of that nature. I want to just quickly, because I want to stay on the topic of education, because you made an important point. You made an important point. Mama C made an important point. I want to talk quickly. So, Darren, you graduated from an HBCU, FAMU, by the way, for all y'all. I don't know the whole thing with FAMU, whatever the cheers or whatever have you. But anyway, education, how important, because we know education is important. As parents, as adults with children, we harp on the fact that our kids need to be educated because of so many struggles back in the day of, look, if you don't get a college degree, you're not going to go anywhere.
That's the
right?
foundation.
Yeah.
That's the foundation of success.
Yeah.
That was listed as the foundation of success.
But that's also false.
So I want to talk to Darren real quick. Darren, kind of give us your perspective and from that point of view.
Well, I was thinking about it last night and even during the show. So my take, it's kind of off the cuff. I mean, I'm of the belief that, when we talk about a job versus career, we've got to look at it through a historical lens, because as an African American, a lot of careers were blocked systemically.
Right.
So I can only just start from, at least from where my nucleus is, which was my family. I mean, my dad went to college in the 50s, which was an anomaly for a lot of African American men.
Right. Yeah.
So he had a skill set in athletics, but actually got a degree in teaching. So at that time, there were only a select few professional careers that were open, particularly for African Americans in the 50s. So with him and my mom, with all of their children, education was the number one thing. Because if you look at it historically, I mean, and this was part of the cost for a lot of people in North America. You had this great migration of people that went from the South to the North, and the only jobs at that time were in the manufacturing area. So, we can't dismiss the fact that a lot of opportunities were limited for African American people, period.
So and I just want to piggyback, and that's like you said, the system. So because of that, we was taught through generational wealth, go to school first. So that's why it continued. But now we're at a day and age because of technology and advancement. We can do so much, and the kids these days are like, nah, I ain't doing that. Like, I'm going for the big guns, and you see these kids younger than us making 6-7 figures. It's like, wow, technology is beautiful. But I understand, like you said, the history. You got to understand the history first before you can understand the present. So a lot has advanced over the years. And whatever someone's choose, there's nothing wrong, because maybe that's your season. People have to understand what season are they in. So a lot of people want to rush, but you don't know what he did to get to that space. So you got to take it time by time. So that's something that somebody have to take into consideration, especially when they don't know exactly what they want to do. I had to do this exercise with my son. I said, okay, I understand you don't know. I said, well, let's put a goal to it, because that's what makes people move.
Set goals.
I said, what do you want? He said, I want a car. I said, okay, cool. We're going to sit down. We're going to look at what type of cars you want. And then we're going to price it. And then we're going to keep that as a goal. And then we're going to say, what can we do to get that
So
car?
get to that goal.
And that's just going to start right there, because I already see his gift. And that's one thing too, mothers, parents, you need to know your children's gifts and shouldn't help them
Yes.
work. That is our
Absolutely.
job while they are here, and people miss that. You know,
Miss
you
it
gotta
totally.
pay attention. I know there's so much stuff going on, but you gotta look at the kids, because it is correct. They are the future.
It's
Yeah.
conversations.
Absolutely.
Conversations are
That's-
very important with our youth. We
Oh,
gotta know
absolutely.
what our children are looking for, the goals they're trying to achieve, show them the pathway to those goals and what avenues they want to take, and guide them through it. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, you show them the way.
Absolutely. And I think to a large degree, children are so distracted by technology
Oh,
to
they
a
are.
point
They are,
that
they're confused.
their parents and nor them are focusing on who they are, their
Absolutely.
gifts, what they want to do, how they can achieve their goals. And let me just say one thing about education, okay? Education was designed to keep people of color from being able to move into positions that white
Exactly.
America wanted to
Prosper.
keep, wanted to hold on
Hold
to
on to.
and use to prosper. So, but now that people of color, women, African American women are the most educated population of women out here now. That's a statistic, and it's a truth.
Absolutely.
But let me tell you, now that we're becoming more educated as a people, what's happened is the script has been flipped on us to a degree. It's not so much about the college degree; it's about the experience.
Yeah.
It's about the skill.
Right.
So, you're having your children go to school to get a skill. Like my grandchildren they go to high school and they go to MCTI,
Right.
where they come out of high school with a high school diploma
And
and
they have a little bit of skill.
a trade certification.
Right.
So they have an option, and I keep
Yes.
telling them, look, when you come out of high school with all these other kids, you're going to be ahead of them because you're going to have a skill that you can use to make even more money.
Right.
High school graduates who don't have a specific a skill, they come out of high school and they're 9 times out of 10 limited to minimum wage.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
people, kids who,
Have already a
Right.
skill
Yeah,
set.
It
exactly.
depends what it is.
Yeah, and it depends on what it is. So, it's important to have a skill to back you up.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, like my oldest granddaughter, she came out of MCTI with culinary credentials, but she always wanted to be a forensic psychologist, a profiler.
Love that.
So that's her goal, and that's what she graduates from ESU this coming year. So she's pursuing it, but she also has something to fall back on if she needs it. So it's
Yes.
important to recognize and stop minimizing the value of having a skill.
Well, that's actually a great point, because I think that now, to your point, things have shifted, right? Back in the day, college education was required for a lot of things, right? Because I remember even when I got into corporate America, the first thing I was told when my manager saw my
Your
passion
talents and abilities.
and my talent, he was like, you need to get your degree or else you're never going to advance in the company. And I was like, what? I was like, they call me Girl Friday. I do everything. They call me for everything.
Right.
I was like, so basically, you're absolutely right. I mean, the challenge was at that time, you had to get a college degree, which, mind you, I did. I mean, I got my bachelor's, but what am I using it for other than the fact that now it's given me the ability to have more opportunity
To get through those doors.
to get through those glass ceilings,
and
as
the
you said.
ceilings, exactly.
As you said, and to your point, for African Americans, it was also to hold you back
Hold you back.
from opportunities. So
Block you.
now that the pendulum is shifted,
Mhm.
it's like, okay, now you need education. And oh, by the way, on top of that, you have to have the skills, which is going to take you time to get there
Right.
in the first place. So
Absolutely.
it's very confusing for children. And I actually like what you said about technology, and so much is advanced now, and kids nowadays,
Right.
their passion and their views on things, there's a lot out there. So we have to hone in on their skill sets
Right.
and their passion and what they want to do.
Right.
We have to have them also hone in on that so that they're not scattered all over the place and confused. Because I
Mhm.
think today children are kind of confused
Yeah,
on
they
what
are.
they want to do in
Right.
life,
They
right?
are.
And they're challenged with the education, the college piece versus trade schools or just being entrepreneurs
Right.
for that matter, which is a career path, right?
Mhm,
If
mhm.
based on their passion. So is education key? And I mean education from a college perspective, because you can be educated in many different ways, right? Is college degree outside of like doctor, lawyers, and so on and so forth, is that key to success in careers?
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let me just kind of go back and say with the education thing historically for us, there's a prerequisite for everybody
Mhm.
to get into whatever industry you want.
Right.
So for example, if you want to be a musician, you have to be trained musically.
Right.
I mean, very few
Right.
people were able to just do it without being able to read a note or improvisationally. So
Right.
it's the same thing in certain, I'll say, disciplines. You
Right.
can't become a doctor without having the
Mhm.
formal training. So
Right. Right.
there's so many aspects. I think what I've seen, and I'm a man of a certain age, I've seen technology and just entrepreneurial aspects change so that we are looking at education arguably the wrong way. When I say that, the system of education has stayed the same while the platforms for people practicing various industries has outpaced it.
Right.
So in other words, and I like what you said, Kalimba, and we were talking about this yesterday, you have to look at your child and know
Mm-hmm.
what they're capable of.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned earlier, my dad was a teacher, so his expectation was that I went to college.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and truth be told, I had those gifts academically. You know, I got
Mhm.
straight A's in grammar school, you know,
Mhm,
and then I went to a prep school. So they weren't that they had to pay a lot of money for at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, you know, he was very an honest person, and he was like, look, when you go there, you know, I'm sending you with some of the best minds you have to produce. And it wasn't any pressure because once I got there, I mean, other than dealing with the social issues that I had to, you know, make sure that I was able to navigate, that was what it was. And then I flipped the script and went to an HBCU. So my point is, that's a different model now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so now children today have the same issues arguably that we had. No one at 18 knows what they want to do.
Mhm.
Right.
And,
Right. It's true.
and what I've seen, at least from my personal experience, the things that we want to do when we're young don't pay a lot of money. I mean, I wanted to do
Mhm.
something that was in the creative field, and most of us want to be creative because when we're young, that's what we do.
Mhm.
We haven't really made that, I'll say, that transition from the creative mind to saying, okay, I've got to have this discipline to either get that degree or go to a job. Some people can't go to a job consistently and be on time.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God,
so,
yeah.
so where I'm going with that is that, you know, we have to kind of have I'll say a platform to say, okay, well, when this kid comes of age, what does he want to do? If he really wants to be a musician, okay, then have they had that experience to really know what that entails?
Right.
So some of it is not just necessarily what someone's aspirations are, but do they have the proper training?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to say something real quick because you said something profound. So you was talking about people who have the job, but they're not on time. So I was listening to Ash Cash. He's a millionaire. He was on a podcast, and he said your job is your first business partner. So how you treat it determines your outcome. So a lot of people are just, oh, I hate my job. I can't stand it. It's like, stop saying that, because how you, put your capabilities in that job, people are watching you.
Absolutely.
They may not be saying anything to you, but they are watching you. So you got to watch your mindset when you go to your job, because that is for you to get your money to pay your bills. Your career is going to
Right.
advance you. So make sure that you are performing your job so you
Absolutely.
can make time for your career. And then sometimes that gift that you learn, it might intercede into your career.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And let me just say, you're absolutely right. When I went into North General as a medical transcriptionist, that was a union job.
Union. Mhm.
Wow. While all the other union people were clocking out
Mhm.
promptly at 4 or 5,
Right.
I was there sometimes at 6 or 7. I did not allow the fact I was a union member to determine how I treated that job.
There you go.
That's why in
Wow.
6 months I had skipped secretary 1, secretary 2,
Right.
secretary 3, and became an executive secretary in 6 months, because I treated the job like I understood the value of that job.
Right.
And how I treated it was going to determine how far I got.
I
Right.
love that you said that. I love that you said that, because I agree. I see it all the time, even in
Mhm.
corporate America. They're like, your hours are 8 to 5.
Mhm.
Guess what?
They out
They're
there
Out the
4:59.
door, clocking out at
And-
4:59.
Exactly.
If you want to advance in an organization, people are watching
They're
how
watching
you
you.
treat your current position in a job.
Exactly. Exactly.
Not saying that you have to kill yourself.
Exactly.
However, you're right. How you treat that job and the people that are watching you are going to make decisions on your career path. Because again, if you're coming in entry level, to your point,
Mhm.
and you want to advance, that is your passion and that's your career path. You got to show people what you're capable of doing, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be done in an 8 to 5.
Right.
Absolutely.
And let me share something too. A lot of it too, because we talked about jobbers career and we're on the education part.
Mhm.
A lot of it is how you react to situations.
That
Now,
too.
when I was younger, again, going into corporate America, and I've been in it for over 30 years,
Mhm.
I was an anomaly, because when I first started, I looked to my left and looked to my right, and I didn't see anybody that remotely looked like me.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, you can either get intimidated or you can say, okay, well, how am I going to be successful? Because that was how I viewed it.
Right.
And it was working. On
Right.
Saturdays, I worked. I didn't
Mm.
particularly want to, but my experience was and is that you have to be a master of all things in what your domain. They call it
Right.
domain
In your
expertise.
domain,
So
right,
my
right.
first job, I said, I'm going to learn this. But then there's also, I'll say, the soft skills. Now, I was lucky in the business school I went to at Florida A&M. They actually had something called professional development. So they were teaching you, if you went to a reception, how to, conduct yourself or certain circumstances, because they knew that in the corporate world, that you being such a small segment of the total, how to navigate.
Mhm.
So I say that to say, in these roles, whether it's in a corporate situation or just a job, how you navigate and how you carry yourself carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
More so than how you perform, because at the end of the day, let's just
Mhm.
keep it real. In today's environments, the morale for a lot of the areas that we're in isn't the highest. And if you allow that negativity and mindset to be part of how you view your job, you're not going to be successful.
Mhm.
And then when it comes time to look at the future leadership, you're going to be passed over.
Oh,
As a leader, I used to see it.
Consistently.
I knew somebody that was a good worker, but they had a horrible attitude.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was in those conversations when we were looking for the next people to step up. They were left out of it. And that's a hard conversation to have with someone, because a lot of us, including myself when I was younger, we define ourselves by that work ethic. I did this, I worked 60 hours. But if you have a negative mindset,
That's not gonna
Don't
you're
mean
not
nothing.
going to get that leadership capability, because
Absolutely.
that is contagious.
Absolutely. And I think I had shared with you guys yesterday that when I applied for the position of special assistant to the president, I didn't know. When I went in, he and I had met in the cafeteria online and had started talking. And, you know, people always said, I make a lamppost talk to me. I mean, I'm just friendly. I like people.
Right.
So we were talking and having a good time and laughing and going down the line, and we paid for our you know, lunch and whatever and went our separate way. I had no idea he was the president of the hospital.
That says
But
a lot about
you know what I'm
him.
saying?
That is a lot
Exactly.
about character.
And we had a similar personality. And so when I applied for the job and I went in to interview with him, he remembered me. He said, "You're the young lady that was online with me." I said, "Yes, I am."
He was watching you.
And he was,
Yeah.
yeah.
It goes
And
back
let me
to what
just
I said.
also say, you know, as a union person, a lot of the union person people would come in with jeans and sweatshirts, and I
Look
mean,
the part.
yeah. So I looked the part. I was looking at how the administrators dressed.
Right.
How
You wanted
the
to be at
people
that
who were
level.
at a different level dressed, what they
Yes.
did, how they responded, and I followed in their footsteps.
Mhm.
So when he saw me that day, I was decked out. I was dressed nice. I looked good, smelled good. I was friendly, you know. So I mean, all I had to do was test the typing test and the shorthand test. I was already typing 80 words a minute and taking shorthand at 120 words a minute. So my skills were up there. I didn't have to worry about my skills. But you're absolutely right. It's all about your mindset and your mentality. You got a funky mentality on that job. Let me tell you, they're going to pick up on
They
that.
don't smell you.
And they're going to smell you, and the funk is going to knock them out,
Yes.
and it's going to keep you out of the opportunity to move to a different level. So I was always smiling. I was always friendly. I was always doing my job, and I always gave a little bit more time. And the first increase in salary he gave me was $25,000.
Woo, that was good.
Okay, and then I went into that job. I think it was started at 18. It was 18 or 25. No, the first raise was 15,000. The next raise the following year was 25,000. He recognized my value, and he didn't want me going nowhere, so he made sure he paid me well. You know, but I was friendly. I could talk to the politicians, community leaders, whatever. I could do what they could do,
So I think
and that was a value to the organization.
exactly, and the point you make is actually a valuable point. It's and everybody kind of alluded to it. The way you kind of operate in that environment and where you're trying to go. You have to
Absolutely.
start looking that part as well, but you also have to act the part.
You have to act.
You
the
have
part.
to make sure that you're giving your all to make sure you can get to that level. And and I just want to be clear. By the way, for anybody who's looking for a $25,000 increase these days,
You can forget it.
You can forget it. I said, but no, I mean, who knows? I mean, you can
There's
move
opportunities.
companies and get $25,000, you know. But the whole point is you have to really. There's a number of different pieces to it, right? So it's making sure, to Darren's point, that you're polished. And
Right.
and I want to talk about kids, like, because I know we have children, people with children in this room, and I want to talk about that because that the important thing is how we educate our children to be able to be ready for the world of job, career, whatever their passion is. But there's many different layers to this, right? So let's talk quickly about that. The being polished, being the education piece, the training, and all those elements that'll get them to where they need to go.
Right.
Can I add
Yeah.
one more thing?
Yeah.
Because this is something, and again, I'm speaking from the guy that's been around the block. The other thing, no matter where you start, what's happened to me, and Steph, because at my job, they asked me to do a lot of
He's
stuff.
Boy Friday, by the way.
But here's why.
Yep.
Everybody, and I tell the people that I do mentor, transferable skills.
Yes.
Every
Yeah,
experience that you
absolutely.
have, you should be taking away from that role that you had some type of skill.
Yep.
Exactly.
Because if you haven't learned anything. So
Absolutely.
from the day I started my first job in corporate America to what I do now, there's something in each of those roles I've learned. If it's an analytic skill, if it's a specific system, if it's a leadership, I had the ability to lead 70 people. That was the best job I ever had than any work, because I was working with people
Right.
and I was using my personality to help them.
Mhm.
And I got them raises. So that
Right.
was the legacy. But my point is,
Good
no
leader.
matter where you are, you
Mhm.
need to get transferable skills
Right.
so that you can be open. And
Yeah.
I only know that because someone that looked out for me when I had this one goal in mind, they said, you know what you should do, Darren, or I recommend get a broader experience.
Mhm.
This trajectory of upward, that's what we all want fundamentally, but sometimes you have to keep your eyes on the prize
Right.
and get a broad-based skill set so that you can get that next big jump,
Yes.
so that you know
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
end-to-end pieces of
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
business.
That's good. That's
Absolutely.
good advice. And I want to talk about mentorship as well, because I think that's very important. Your first mentors are your parents
Absolutely.
and your educators, right? They're educators and your parents. Let's talk about it from a children perspective. And Kalima, I know you got children, Savannah's got children. Let's talk about what are those conversations that you have with your children about, do you talk about job versus career? What exactly are those conversations like, education or skill sets or things of that nature? What are those conversations like?
Well, for me, it's kind of funny. My youngest, he's like already an entrepreneur, but I realize he's been watching me. So some of the things that I've been doing, he'll watch and then he'll go ahead and duplicate, and then he'll go, look, mommy, I kid you not, this guy has been editing his videos for the past 2-3 years. He showed me one video, I don't even know how he did this, but it's 10K views. I'm like, how did you do that? I didn't even get 10K. Wait a minute. You know, and I said, but that right there taught me a teachable moment. Like, parents, one thing, even though we educate our kids, never get to a place where you don't allow them to also educate you, because when you put that
Absolutely.
together, you're fire, and that's what me and him are. Versus the other one is kind of funny. He's still not sure, but like I said with him, because I knew where they are, I can go to this one and say, okay, you gotta slow down a little bit. Let me teach you on this one, but this one, hey, let's put a goal in front of this because we already had that conversation. So it depends on where they are. You have to meet them where they are.
Exactly.
And then you have to give them tasks and skills to perform so that they can get sharper. Because I realized, okay, I can't keep just talking to you. Let me make this fun and creative. And that's what parents have to do. You have to get fun and creative, because doing it the old school way, that's boring. Nobody listens to that. Even me.
Nobody.
Nobody
Old
wants
school
to. Right. That's out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So meet
yeah.
them where they at.
Yeah, because so much has changed, right? I mean, even in our social environment, and to your point,
Absolutely.
technology, and Terry says it all the time, pop culture and so on and so forth. So there's so many changes. What are the conversations? You have 5,
And I
5,
made my mistakes.
4 girls and a boy, but you learn from them, and that's the thing. It's you have to
Absolutely.
learn from your mistakes, because you're teaching you're also teaching your children those challenges. You can get through those challenges.
Right.
But let's talk about job, career, because I know I have a couple nieces that are up there.
Amazing kids. So first of all, I do see a foundation in certain areas of college, as far as a 2-year college, entering in, getting your foundation, kind of understanding what's out there and how to prepare yourself. So with taking education in college and intertwining it with a trade, which is a job,
Mm-hmm.
we got to understand that our parents as immigrants came from that. We learned hands-on lifestyle. So our growth in our generation was, college is important. Our parents wanted us to go to college.
Mhm.
I was one that didn't. I was
Mhm.
probably the only one that really didn't. And I found my college career later on in life in ways that benefited me by understanding and broadening myself, but in ways that did not help me because I'm sitting on alone. So when you're looking at college careers, you got people going to college making $80, $90, $100,000 a year, but they're like 50% in debt.
Yes.
Mhm.
So now
Yes.
where is the benefit of college versus trade? You get into a trade, you're hands-on. Now you're building yourself. You're learning from the basis,
Absolutely.
and you're taking that and you're expanding it into your trade. They might be hands-on, they might be more literal. There's so many different areas to go. I had to learn with my oldest. We pushed her and pushed her for college. She did video technology. Her goal was coming out of a tech school. She was like, well, I want to do biogenetics. I'm like,
Mhm.
what is that?
Mhm.
Come to find out, 2-3 years later, she wants to be a baker. She's creative. She's amazing in the things that she does, and she does it by herself.
Mm-hmm.
Then we look at, each one of my children had a different goal. I always pushed for school. To me, I was afraid of the fact that we were taught, if you don't have an education, you won't be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have an education, you can't excel. You're going to walk into a job, they're going to say, well, we expect a college transcript. We expect to see you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or you can never get into that management status and guide a company.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that as truth.
Mhm.
I've done it.
You're right.
I walked into a company and unexpectedly grew within 3 months. I was in management. I pursued and I wanted to go even district. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there. It's how you progress yourself, how you learn by every movement, how you teach your children to do the same. My children started working 13, 14 years old, doing the same thing. I tell my 18-year-old all the time, the most important thing is when you walk into a company is you guide your associates. Everyone in there can learn by a pathway that you create for them. So if you're learning, you need to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
So whether they're less educated or less knowledgeable, you teach them, you mentor everybody. It doesn't matter older, younger, it doesn't matter their status. It doesn't matter where they came from or anything like that. You have to guide them. And that's part of learning your foundations from schooling to trade. I believe the biggest thing is getting out there and learning anything and everything you can, whether it's on the job, off the job, or surrounding yourself with people in different avenues.
And you got to feel good about yourself.
I love it.
You know,
I
you got to feel good
I'm
about
blessed.
yourself. Yeah.
I'm blessed to say that I've seen my children grow, and I'm going through this with my 16-year-old. Yes, I put a Facebook posting. I know people had seen it and they questioned me. They're like, but you've done this so many times. Why are you asking? I got a straight A student. I mean, her GPA is basically a 4.15. You can't have a child go through today's society and hearing all the different things around them, and she doesn't even want to go to college. Her goal is, I want to go to trade school. So I had to question myself. I'm like, but I need her to understand college is important. But at the same time, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, but she's different. She's got the brains and she can build herself a company like no other. And I have to take a step back and say, all right, well, how about you do maybe a couple years, the first 2 years in school, get yourself a foundation from it. And maybe you take that trade school and you intertwine, like you had said earlier, you take the two and make yourself out of something.
Absolutely.
And from there, see where they go. But you can't turn around and tell your child, no, they can't do something.
Absolutely. Especially if they are passionate about it.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of parents kill their children's passion.
Yes.
Why? Because
Yes.
they need their children to be
What
trophy
they want,
children.
thank you.
Trophy children.
They want to be seen. They want to say, I did good as a parent.
Yeah, exactly.
But
But that
we're doing good as parents because
Absolutely.
we're giving them the opportunity to be who they are.
absolutely. That's what being a good parent is all about. Allowing your child to be who they are, not who you want them to be, because you want the accolades for being, quote unquote, a good parent.
That's
What you think is a good parent.
right. You made a good point, and it was. I think about when we were younger, and it's like, my parents looked at, for me, they were like, oh, she could be a lawyer, because I could argue a case. I could argue a case. I'll give you the breakdown, the facts, the this, the that. I'll do whatever. If I got to do research, whatever. But, I think
That's
you're
what makes
absolutely
you the lead host.
That's basically I said, but it's I look at things so differently now because, and like I said, we don't have children, but I have nieces, 11 nieces and nephews. And I look at them and I'm enjoying seeing their growth and who they are and who they want to be. And I'm here and I want to get into mentorship because I think that's rather important, especially when it comes to jobs or careers or whatever path you take. It's you're right. You have to allow them to live. But I remember, parents are like, this one's going to be a lawyer. This one's going to be a doctor. But I also have to think of their mentality. They came here as immigrants and they knew coming here, they struggled. They worked in a factory. Okay.
3 shifts.
3, shifts. And then my dad was cabin and, he had 3-4 jobs. I was like, never home. But they worked so hard because they wanted better for us. And they knew in this country, for us to do better, we had to go to school and become lawyers or doctors or whatever have you. Look, I don't need to be a lawyer. I can argue without having the degree.
Right, exactly.
But you know, my whole point is as I agree, I think the concept of pushing your children to be something maybe they don't want to be is gonna create misery for them. Some of them might be good. Some of them might realize that, yeah, this was a good path, but others are gonna be miserable.
And
And
that
to
was
your
all I had
point,
to learn.
paying a college tuition that for till they're probably retiring, they're still paying for a college tuition.
Absolutely.
I know somebody who's doing that right now. My
Yeah.
cousin went to school, I think maybe for a year or two, dropped out, and my aunt is still paying $100,000 tuition. She hasn't
I'm
been in
not
college
kidding.
for over, I don't know, 15 years.
Right.
I'm still paying my
Exactly.
college
Right.
tuition.
And that's stressful.
And
It is stressful.
I have a bachelor's degree and I'm in debt. No matter where I go today in life, there is no way I will pay that debt off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I could never utilize my career.
Wow. And you know, let me, I was very blessed because of the money that I made when I graduated. I took my vacation pay. I took some of my
To pay that,
stuff,
to pay-
and I paid. So I
Yeah.
graduated from
Yeah.
from college
Right.
with my bachelor's degree, and I didn't owe anything.
Mhm.
And I was
That's a
very
blessing.
That's
that
a
was
blessing.
a blessing.
That's
You know,
a
when
blessing.
I hear the stories from people about, you know,
Yeah.
going in and getting all these students loans and elevating the cost that they're gonna have to pay back.
Mhm.
I mean, some people are literally in tears about
Yeah.
it.
That's
Yeah.
coming from a lot of the financial aid. If we go into education, what are they doing as soon as a student walks in the door? Apply for financial aid. Then they
Right.
don't tell you there's a difference in what you're taking. So they're having you just sign everything to make sure your cost is covered, not making you realize that they say you're gonna have to pay this back, but they don't tell you that.
It's collecting interest from the time
Well,
you
From
From
the
the
you
time
I
you
have-
sign those papers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to share a story. And this was, I think I was a junior. So I was lucky because I had a scholarship to go to school.
Mhm.
And one day I was going to the administrator's office, and a friend of mine, he was just very happy. You know, he's like, yeah. I was like, you know, what's going on? He goes, well, I got a GSL, guaranteed student loan. So I was like, well, what's that? He goes, well, you can borrow money and you don't have to pay it back until you get out of school.
Mhm.
Now, I was a business school major,
Mhm.
and I was learning court finance at the time, and I was learning all of this stuff. I had a cursory knowledge, but like we were really getting deep in it, and I had an idea. I said, I'm gonna get me a GSL, and I used it and invested it. Because at the time I said, well, I'll put to practice what I'm learning. You know, I was learning about stocks, bonds, annuities, dividends, retained earnings, all that. So I took it and I took a little bit off the top for myself,
Of
to
course.
enjoy it. But the long story short, when I graduated, because I had invested at that time in the Pacific Rim that was really doing well, it doubled. So I tell people, if, you know, some people did it and didn't do well, but I used it in a good way because when I graduated, I paid the
Paid
money
it off.
back and I
Mhm.
actually had a little
Had
bit
something left.
of money for myself.
Right.
So
I want to
Right.
piggyback off of that because a lot of you said a little bit, but y'all don't realize it. What you just said was strategy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's all about
Like,
strategy.
so when she said, oh, go for 2 years and then maybe transfer somewhere else, because a lot of students don't know, if you start off 2 years at a community college and then transfer to a 4-year college later, that's saving tuition. Maybe
Saving
that's
a
based
lot of
on
money.
that parent though. So it all depends on what your strategy is because it all depends on your resources. So
Right.
one thing, if we're going to go there and sit with our kids, we need to understand
Correct.
what resources do we
Right.
have.
Right.
Because once you understand your resources that you have, then you can start the strategy. And then
Right.
that's
Correct.
how you can do it. So you don't
And
have
you
to be
teach
in
them.
$100,000 debt.
Yes.
And you can pay it off. There are ways, and we said it before, and that's in the entrepreneur realm. But you gotta again know how to apply it
Mhm.
and with the strategy and how things fall.
Yes,
That's-
and
that's
that
a good point.
$100,000 debt
correct.
is
Yeah.
constantly accruing interest.
Absolutely.
And that's why I said we're gonna sit on that.
Hello. You know, I want to go back and get my master's now. One of my goals is to teach at the college level. I mean, I can teach at a junior college.
You
with
could
my
get
bachelor's.
financial
I can
aid.
get-
You're retired.
Yeah, but you know what? Not only do I don't want nothing that I have to pay back because
You
I
gotta
don't
pay that
at
back.
this point in my life, I don't want to stress having to pay any money back. I just want to go do what I want to do and not have the debt hanging over my head at this
Right,
point in
yeah,
my life,
yeah.
because stress is a killer. Okay, I don't care what form it comes in, it will take you down and out.
Let's talk about that. So let's talk mentorship and stress. Mentorship. It's so important. I said your first mentors as children is your parents and your educators, right? But mentoring comes in many different realms, right?
Right.
Even on the job. And I think you kind of said something that, you know what, you tell your daughter, like if she goes in, she's not just learning, but she's also mentoring others and helping others.
Absolutely.
And I think what's people are concerned about when they get into, and actually I'm just starting to mentor someone else. She's in a all male dominating field, IT, and she's the only female. So she's running through some challenges right now, and you know, so I'm kind of guiding her and whatever have you. Mentorship, how important, and and I know Darren, you do a lot of mentoring as well on the job. What are some of the things that you feel are important on the job when it comes to a mentor? What do you look for in a mentor?
Understanding every individual for themselves. If you don't know a person for themselves, you can never guide them in the avenue that you need to.
Absolutely.
Because you'll have one person on one level, one person on the other level. And I started this with my kids since they were in, I say, elementary school. They guide they guide kids in the places that they fit. So if they're playing sports, they're guiding their acquaintances. They're helping one another, and that comes from you. You take that into a job setting, an education setting, a future setting. You're always going to have that open opportunity to work with every single person that comes before you. You have to know an individual for themselves.
Absolutely. And that's why mentorship, one size does not fit all.
Right.
Okay. And the same thing with therapy, any type of therapy, one size don't fit all. That's why I always tell people, if you're going to go into therapy, find someone who does therapy from a spiritual perspective, not a religious perspective, a spiritual, someone who's going to get to know you, listen to you, understand you, and allow you to kind of guide them, because we really, as mentors, therapists, etc., don't know any more about people than doctors do. You know, we've got to guide the doctors, we've got to guide the mentors, we got to guide the therapists, but we've got to take an active role in the process of our own mentorship.
I'm followed every
And it
time.
doesn't matter what level you are in an organization.
Absolutely.
Your mentor could be anyone.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
It could be anyone.
Absolutely.
You could be guiding the president of the company because they're looking up to you and how you take every step in your pathway. So there might be something that you think you're not showing them, but they see it in you, and they're learning by you as well.
Absolutely.
There's a level of experience though, right, that comes with that, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Darren, I know you do quite a bit of mentoring without even knowing that he's mentoring people. We all are mentors, right? Even here on this station, here as the Sistership Network, here as the Brothership Network, you know, being here on Gynesis Radio, being able to share our jewels and our insights. And by the way, 888-304-4401. Anybody who wants to call in, comments, questions, experience, please call in.
Absolutely.
Darren, talk about some of the experiences you have as a mentor with you know, people even on the job, because you know there's so many people that do look up to him. And I'm proud of that. By the way.
Well, I've been blessed to be a mentor because, again, I use my dad as an example. I mean, literally hundreds of young kids in Newark, you know, he taught, he was a recreation director. So that was, and he coached. So that was the example. I mean, I coached, I did that thing. So I think some of it, you are an example of what you see. I saw the respect that was given to him because he gave his time.
Right.
But then he also, imparted wisdom on me, things that he told me at a young age. He said, son, whether you're a street sweeper or a CEO, people are who they are. And you never look above or, condescending. He says, because the people that you burn on the way up, you see on the way down. So those were just things that he was telling me. So the way I viewed it, I mean, I've had a great career, but I've always tried to keep it in perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
And people would see the fact, and I think someone on the panel said it, I look at everybody individuals, because as a leader, I think some people get a script and use it. Everything's not for everyone. So
Absolutely.
if you're going to be an
Absolutely.
effective leader, you've got to know the nuances and how to relate to people. So,
Absolutely.
some people you can talk to tough,
Yeah.
but if
Yep.
that person's sensitive and you say the same
Right.
script,
Right.
you can either, harm them
Harm
them.
emotionally, or
Absolutely.
go down I'll say a non-value added path with HR, because people, we live in cancel culture. But to answer the question exactly with mentorship, one of my prerequisites is making sure that if I even mentor you formally, you're coachable.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
something
You
that
gotta
my
be
old
coachable.
man told me. You got to be coachable.
Absolutely.
And that means taking constructive criticism
Mhm.
with the same weight as criticism, that, what should I say? Your strengths and weaknesses. A
Right.
mentor should be able to objectively tell you those.
Right.
But then, more importantly, they should be able to tell you ways to navigate the issues.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
So
Right.
so if there's a deficiency in your education, again, it comes down to the skill set. If you want to be a pharmacist, but you've never taken a class in biology, chances are you're not going to be that. So there's a level of integrity around that.
Mhm.
There's
Exactly.
and also making sure they know that sometimes it's more than hard work. A lot of us believe that hard work and dedication will see you through. Well, that's not always the
That's
truth.
not always the
Right.
truth.
The biggest lesson someone gave me, that I shared as a mentor, is that I can be the hardest worker in the room, but if I haven't established even some relationships with people that are at the higher level
Right.
of the playing field, my boss can be my advocate, but in the room full of the wise men, if everybody doesn't have that advocacy, he's going to have a harder chance for me
Yes.
to get ahead in the organization. And I found that out. And that's when I took it upon myself, because I had the work ethic and the performance straight. It was building those relationships so everyone knew a little bit about Darren. So sometimes that takes the form of a project that's
Absolutely.
going to get you visibility.
Yeah.
So when I mentor folks, it's understanding what their end game is, because
Right.
you're going to learn a lot about the mentee if they say, well, I just want to get ahead in the organization, so I got a mentorship. Well, you're going about it wrong.
Right.
Let's step
Gotta
back,
step back.
Right,
and
right.
then do that. So
Right.
the best mentor is a leader by example.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And that's called servant leadership, because
Servant
again,
leadership.
Right.
I've challenged people. Just because you have the title,
Right.
that doesn't mean that you're the champion.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
right.
you have to
Absolutely.
be able to, like I said, have empathy. That's
Yeah.
something
very
that
important.
a lot of leaders sometimes lack. I mean, and sometimes you have to be honest, because one of the things I've found is that in these higher organizations, there's a lack of integrity.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
people think that I'm going to be politically savvy by giving I'll say a gray area. Sometimes in dealing with people, there is no gray. People are going to respect you more if you're honest.
Right.
And if they don't, then you have to just have that managerial integrity to be yourself and stand by the decisions you make.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Being an authentic and genuine person is so important to the process of mentorship.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because you know what, whether people realize it or not, they may not understand what it is, but they can sense,
Mhm.
they can hear,
Right.
they can see,
The energy.
and they can smell fake.
The energy.
Okay, that
Energy,
negative,
yes.
funky energy
Yes.
that you think, you're coming all out and you all this and blah, 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 blah. But what happens is sometimes all that is a disguise to hide who you really are.
All that
So you
jazz.
don't have to put on a show for people. Just be authentic.
Yeah.
Be empathetic. And for myself, who is an empath, and for people who are empath, you gotta learn to put it in perspective, because people will eat you alive.
Before you speak.
Okay,
Yes.
you will become a vampire's favorite cuisine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got to learn. You got to become an awakened and enlightened empath. Understand who, what, when, where, why, and how-tos of what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to be effective. Just because you're a sweetheart don't mean you can guide people if you're not guiding yourself appropriately so that you maintain a certain balance for yourself in the process of mentoring other people.
And that's very important, because that was one of the factors. Me walking into a company, there was a bunch of older people.
Mm-hmm.
I was around the same age. They just assumed I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So when I walked in with knowledge and positive attitude and the understanding that I wasn't afraid to step forward and say what I had to say, it affected a lot of people.
Oh, I'm
But then
sure.
I became the biggest mentor in that place.
Mhm.
And I would hear management say, well, that person can't do it. As soon as they hire them, they're not going to get anywhere. They won't be anything. I've brought people into management without them even thinking they can achieve that goal. But it was about how I went about it. And people always ask me,
Absolutely.
why do people want to work with you? I said, because they're going to know me for the truth of me.
Absolutely.
I will tell you whether you're right or wrong, or whether you're going
Absolutely.
to educate me in return. But the biggest thing is knowing them
Yeah.
and letting them know that they can be somebody. And that's what we got to teach our kids. They got to walk
Absolutely.
into a place with positivity and knowing that no matter what somebody tells them, there's always a better place up there for them. They just got to make sure that they are positive.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny you said that, because I started thinking about, because I'm interviewing right now for a supply chain position. I'm interviewing people. I have a couple openings. By the way, anybody is supply chain specialist, reach out to Stefania, because I'm looking for people.
Okay.
But you know, the one thing I felt also, because I think about even interviewing people into a job, right? And I
Right.
say, we got recruiters that bring people in, and I was just interviewing someone recently, and I'm not a very like black and white interviewer. Like, I don't like that. I want to have a conversation, and it's a conversation that leads you to the answers that you need or
Really
want
need.
for that
Exactly.
position.
Exactly.
I don't like, or do you do this and do that? I'm like, I want to have a conversation, because I also need to assess that person's mentality, their how they would operate in certain environments.
Right.
And actually, I just interviewed someone. Unfortunately, they didn't have any of the skill sets that I needed, right away.
Right.
But they told me about themselves to the point where I said, you know what? This role may not be for you, but there's other opportunities in our
Yes.
company that you can use the skills that you have, even at an entry level.
Absolutely.
I said, and that's somebody who, and I told him, I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. I said, unfortunately, you're not fit for this role. However, you're gonna be fit for a role in this organization. So don't give up. And the recruiter actually, after he got off the phone, the recruiter said, I understood what you said. He goes, I'm gonna find this person a job. And those are little nuggets and things that we don't realize that we can affect somebody's life
Absolutely.
Yes.
and their
Absolutely.
livelihood.
Absolutely.
And if you really are attentive and listening to where they are as a person
Absolutely.
and what their aspirations are, because I literally told him right back all the information he gave me. I said, okay, so if I put this all in perspective, you want to do X, Y, and Z. This is your career aspiration. He goes, yep. I said, well, with that said, this is not for you. However, there's other opportunity. And he just looked at me and was like, okay.
I'm glad you said that, because that is what people need out here. There's so many people afraid of interviews. They're afraid to
Yeah.
speak up.
Yeah.
Our children are afraid of interviews. They're being interviewed for colleges. They don't understand what to say or do, because this is not something that's an everyday thing.
Right.
So they're walking into jobs at 14 years old, getting jobs. And they think just walking into a job and saying, I'm 14 years old, I don't have any background, but they want to do something. Give them the opportunity. Find out who they are as a person.
Yeah.
Help them.
Find-
Exactly.
Find out if this is a place you can give them that foundation.
Absolutely.
And educate them, mentor them,
Absolutely.
show them the way.
Absolutely. We need more human beings who know how to be human.
Yes.
And that's a problem
Yeah.
in amongst the human family. A lot of human beings don't know how. They're human beings, but they don't know how to interact as human beings.
Mhm.
And that's so important. You can't decide that you think you all this in a bag of chips and you're going to mistreat everybody else because they may not be where you are. Help them to get where you are.
We
Help
might
them
not
in
get
whatever
there.
way, period.
We might not get to corporate America, but we're still somebody.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely.
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 Well, here's the thing that I've been saying as of late, because again, I've gone from being an individual contributor to a
Mhm.
leader,
Mhm.
and going back to an individual contributor. And what I found is that, and again, like I said, I have to preface, I mean, I've been in the game for a while. I'm finding out that a lot of people in my peer set are not happy in their roles.
Yeah, let's talk about
And
that.
I think that part of it, I mean, a lot of it is because, again, there's just the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're at a certain stage in your career, you're not just going to walk away,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
unless you know, and if you have a product idea or service and you're willing to put more energy into that entrepreneurial aspect,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily worth it, in my
Mhm.
opinion. But to get to the brass tacks, my observation is that there's been a big gap in leaders, you know, because
Absolutely.
either
Oh,
people are
absolutely.
trying to get ahead
Right.
or they're not happy themselves.
Right.
Right.
They're not doing the due diligence to develop
Mhm.
people within the organization. I'm
Mhm.
fine. Like I said, I can do anything that I put my mind to. I
Right.
think I've proven that over time. But when I look at it, trying to establish, I'll say, healthy relationships with leaders, I'm like, they don't see it. You know, they're not looking or having that vision. For them,
Right.
it's just the role, and they're managing up. And then you have all of this dysfunction. And a lot of it, and as I mentor people, I try to explain that to them. Understand the organization, because you're just a part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
don't understand the dynamics of the organization
Mhm.
and how to nimbly navigate, you're going to wind up being unhappy.
You're
No,
gonna
You know what I mean?
absolutely,
And then you have to have that meeting with yourself, do your own personal inventory, and say, you know what, this is what it is. I mean, I've had to come to those conclusions. This is what it is. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you ask for whatever, you know, or if you do things and you're not getting the outcomes you expect, and management's not giving you, you have a choice. No answer is an answer to sometimes.
Oh,
Right.
a lot of times.
You know, and I
Exactly.
think that you have to just, I think I'm wired differently as well, because what I found is I may not particularly like a situation, but that's not going to deter me from the end goal.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
that's counterproductive, because our emotions tell us, you know, if we want to feel right, if we want to just think that, you know, this is how it's supposed to be, the fact of the matter is you still have to produce.
But you know what? And you made a good point there. Emotional intelligence
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
is
Yeah.
key to how far you go.
Yes.
If you're emotionally out of whack, everyone will see that, especially the ones who have the power to help elevate you and move
Or
you
keep
into-
you down.
or keep you down.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
So you got to understand the power of emotional intelligence and stop acting as though you're some kind of nutcase or somebody's treating you in a way that is contradictory to who you believe you are. You show people who you are through your emotions.
Yeah.
How well do you handle your emotions?
Yeah.
That tells people a lot. And in interviews, they will try and gorge you to see
How you
Right.
react.
how you respond.
How you react,
Yes.
And if you respond in a negative way, they're gonna deep six your resume.
They will.
Right.
They will.
Or
They will.
nowadays, I don't think that you give it to them in paper. You give it to them on the internet. So what they'll do is delete.
It's
Period.
screened.
Goodbye.
It's screened now.
Yeah,
It's
So
screened
you
now.
don't
Yeah.
have certain, so it goes into a system now. This
Right.
is the thing with our children today.
Wow.
They gotta know how to verbalize themselves.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Right.
it goes into a system, and I do hiring. I've done hiring for years. It goes into a system, and it weeds
Keywords.
the people
Right.
out.
Weeds them out.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because you have so many I don't want to say just educated. You have so many people with talents and willpower to make things happen and actually grow with a company
Right.
that are not even being looked at.
Can I
So-
share something with you? And you bring a good point, and it goes back to what I was just saying around management, because one time we had to hire a team, and I remember people just accepted what the recruiters were bringing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say at the time, no, don't get rid of any of those resumes. And what we did was after hours, I mean, it took more time.
Review.
I said, you know what, let's look at this, because you're
Yeah.
right. An algorithm doesn't necessarily mean you're going
Yes.
to get the best person.
Yes.
Right.
And what we found when we were putting this customer service team together, we came to some correlations. We said, you know what? Okay, the obvious would be someone that had other customer service experience.
Right.
But because of the demographic that we looked at,
Right.
we started saying, well, if you were in hospitality,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you were in banking or you were dealing with people's money, like
Mhm.
say in medical or banking, that's where we started saying, okay, that may have been missed by this algorithm.
Yes.
But let's
Yes,
bring these people in and
absolutely.
talk to them. And then when you talk to them and created
Get the truth.
scenarios,
Yes.
and we had one of the stronger teams when it was once done, but it was that step, the extra step,
Extra
that
stuff.
made us add the value that we
That's-
brought to the
That's
team.
important.
That's
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. That's adding that humanism to the
Yes.
whole
And
process.
that
Right.
was
You
my
know,
thing.
because technology can't see what we can see. It may be smart, but it's not as smart as we are. We have the ability to discern on a level that computers and technology in general
Mhm.
cannot.
And it's
Right.
a shame because we're still going through that. You've
Yeah.
got unemployment.
Right.
Unemployment has you filling out applications. They give you this job site. So now what happens to these people that are trying to get jobs? And we're talking about people that have been doing this for years. They have such a strong background and can carry themselves forward. But then you're going into these unemployment sites because you got corporate America, you got all kind of level of people that are now out of jobs. They can't get another job because they're being weaned out just by the system.
Well, and
So
this
now-
is where we need to educate, right? Like we're talking job versus career, but we're talking about how even people get to that.
and how
that
they're
point,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And if your resumes, it's how your resume is written, because you're right. Anything you fill out on a resume, it gets uploaded, and the algorithm is picking up key words,
Right.
key defining
Yeah.
words. We have to educate people on what those key defining words are
and how
to
we
even
work.
be looked at.
Absolutely.
So I
Well-
wanted to piggyback off of that because it
Yeah.
goes back to what resources, right? So
Yeah.
people need the proper resources.
Right.
So people need to look at, like our county even funders, like the career links, the
Mhm.
career. A lot of people need to take the opportunity
Yes.
and go on their website because they give free
Yes.
training. So
Yes.
again, this goes back to knowing what you need and then lingering on that resource, because I'm going to be real with you, because how technology is going, nobody's going to really stop and examine the application. Like you said, it goes by technology, because I even do this. So you got to make sure you go to these sites, because once you do that, then you can put the keywords on your resume.
Right.
So the system can pop you up. Because I'm like, if I don't see a keyword, I'm not interviewing because
Right.
I'm not going to waste my time.
Right.
And I do not have time to go through 150 applications.
Absolutely.
So that's just real talk. So people can say, "Oh yeah, the system sucks." No, you have to know how to work the system, and that's the key thing in this whole game. Know how to work the system. What side do you want to be on? Because there's two sides. Because remember, there has to be someone collecting the money, and there has to be someone making the money. What side do you want to be on?
But then
Mhm.
the question is how do you teach our youth to do that? Because I go back to the youth.
Right.
We're talking about, we got people have jobs every day, but we're talking about how do we educate our youth to understand the difference,
Right.
to understand
Okay.
what steps to take, and to make sure that they're being evaluated and looked at.
I have to add one more piece to it, because all of what you guys said is valuable, but no matter where you are in the career stage, the other component of this is networking. And if you have not
that
done
part,
that,
yeah.
then all of that, because there was a time 30, 40 years ago, the process in the job search was
Was
you
exactly
provide
the
a
same.
resume, and if the
Absolutely.
stars and the moon align.
Yeah.
It's gotten so uber competitive and strategic that you have to know somebody.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
It is clear, and the longer you've been in your job career, the harder it is. So the difference between starting over from scratch and knowing someone that you worked with maybe 2 jobs ago that's now at a company,
Right.
and
Right.
they know, because it may not be advertised, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone's about cutting costs.
Right.
So I've seen situations where someone will say, "Hey, do you know we're looking for so and so?" That's actually how I got the role that I'm in, because
Right.
someone knew I did a job great in a previous situation. They called me.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that entrepreneurial spirit, but selling yourself.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
and that's what people forget. They think that just writing something on a resume is going to immediately get them an opportunity. You have to sell yourself.
You have to sell
Even
yourself.
before that resume hits,
Right.
you need to be selling yourself. So it's all in how you You sell yourself to the public,
Absolutely.
you know, and again, social media is a huge platform. It has its benefits.
Yes.
And there's the other flip side. You got to be careful what you're writing on there and how you're communicating or whatever have you. Because I'm going to tell you, these companies are looking
Right.
at that. So just saying, I've seen some stuff and I'm like, Lord, I probably wouldn't hire that person because of, you know, they're just negativity. But, you know, you got to be careful. You got to sell yourself. That goes back to the networking piece, right? You have to network. You have to be around people. If you want to get somewhere, you got to entertain those individuals. Like Mama C said, I
Mhm.
started looking and acting like those that the vision that I had.
Right.
I started working with those
That's
folks.
where I wanna go
started
there.
entertaining those
Mhm.
folks. I
Mhm.
started interacting with them and showing them who I was before I
Mhm.
even got there.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
another piece. And I think for children, like you said, you know, how do you teach them? Actually, Lady K said it. Got to go on these career links. You got to educate these kids to what are the resources they could use. Even going to their in school to their guidance counselors and whatever have you.
They're
Absolutely.
not always helpful though.
Yeah.
And if they're not, you take that other step.
They're not always
Right.
helpful, and I went through that with in high school.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say anything. In
Right.
high school, my children have not seen their guidance counselor, going all the way into their senior year. Didn't even have scholarship applications out, colleges to look at. I mean,
Wow.
they're
That's
lacking.
crazy.
You're
The
lacking.
system is so
Broken.
I'm gonna thank you for the
Right.
word because my mind was not there. The system is so broken today, and this is why our parenting skills have to come in. The networking skills is real
Right,
important
right,
because we
right.
meet people, and if we show our children how to meet people and properly bring themselves forward, they can even turn to those networking people and say, "Hey, I just wrote a resume. Can you look at it for me?
Yeah.
Right.
Can you
Right.
guide me in the right direction?" Talk
Mhm.
to another. I tell my kids all the time, I'm not the only parent. Okay, I am not the only parent. You know who's your parent? Your community.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
what I can't give you, go ask another teacher. Go ask, a friend. Go ask a family member. Go ask whoever you need to ask for. Never feel scared to speak up just because you
Absolutely.
have a parent that you're feeling that if you don't ask your parent, that's like your
You're
roadblock
only
right there.
your roadblock.
Right.
It's not like that.
It's
To
not
me, it's
always
all
the
about
case.
teaching them where can they go and where can they step forward. I would love for them to do creative stuff because that's a great thing because
Absolutely.
you're learning your child.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion about it. But the system is broken, so we're still in the same position: career versus trade. How do you teach your child the right thing when the schools aren't even doing it while they're in school?
While they're in school.
So-
And it goes back to depending on the school's resources, because
Yes.
not all schools are like that. Because
Right.
I was in the opportunity where my son every year he's meeting his guidance, even before he even got to
Yeah.
made the decision to go to college. He didn't want to yet. He was like, "Well, I want to sit with Tony because I want to talk about his career choice." So it always depends on
They're
the system
overwhelmed.
and the
Yeah.
resources.
They're
Yeah.
overwhelmed.
They're
So
overwhelmed.
I
Well-
think they're overwhelmed, and some of them are not even in a position to be guidance counselors because
True.
they're just stepping in as a role
Mm.
because the system is so broken.
And
Yeah.
this is where again we have to be very keen on the resources that are out there outside of our nucleus, what we consider right here,
Right.
to make sure that they know where they can go. And that's where, you know,
Absolutely.
when you got a roadblock, what's your plan A, B, C, D, E,
Yes.
to make sure I get to the
like Lady K
right
said.
resource to be able to, get what I need out of these people. And, the last thing I wanted to quickly talk about, because we got about maybe 10 minutes, stress on the job. So jobs are, you get a job, your jobs are for money, right? I need a job to make money.
Right.
Careers are your long extended path of where you could end up. Coming in, when I came into the career path I came into, I didn't even know it was a career. I went because I wanted to be in a corporate environment. I didn't want a dead end job. I just wanted to get in the door. I got in the door, and once they told me, get yourself a college degree, you could potentially progress. I see a bit, I see something for you.
Mm-hmm.
That ended up becoming my career. But to Darren's point, I had to work and learn different skill sets that people didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They picked my career path. They said, Steph, we got an opportunity here. Steph, we got an opportunity here. Steph, we got an opportunity.
You're well.
I took every opportunity, and it was always a starter position, and I made it what it was, and that's what got me to where I was. Again, it's that passion, that drive, and then all of a sudden it became a career without me even knowing it.
Mhm.
And that's what people don't realize as well. Sometimes your job can become your career path.
Absolutely.
And that's what I wanted to hit on. And I thought about that the whole ride here. I thought about it last night. I've been asking people questions throughout the week. And I asked them all different questions. I said, what is your opinion about taking on a trade versus taking on a career in a college atmosphere to reach a different level? And we all came up with the same conclusion on it. A trade can become your career.
It is your
Right,
career.
right.
Because
Oh,
you're walking in, and now everything you're learning is based on what you are going to do the rest of your life.
Right.
Absolutely.
You take a career path in college. Now you could take that career path, but are you really going to be that doctor? Are you really going to be in customer service? It depends where you're headed. But when you walk in as a trade, you're already directly in the field you are, and you're being taught directly in that field. So that whole 10 different courses you need to take is based on that trade.
The only caveat I would make with trades is you have a lot of trades that are represented by unions. And I've
That's
seen
opportunity.
but I've seen, right, wrong, or indifferent, sometimes there's been some bias and some skew with how unions represent everyone, because there's a lot of nepotism and there are a lot of other factors that are around it. The best example I can give you was when the Prudential Rock Center was being built in Newark, New Jersey. Now that's my hometown, and that's arguably, from a demographic standpoint, roughly, I'd say maybe 75% African American. But when they were building that, all of the bricklayers, when we went down there and looked, they had none. And that was dictated by the unions. Now, obviously, that's contracted, but that's an instance where you would think in an area so heavily concentrated by one demographic, there'd be similar representation. So anybody that was a welder or a mason or a carpenter, they may have had that trade. They may have had that skill, and that was a multi-million-dollar project, but they didn't have the opportunity to use that. So I think it would be just fair to say that, that trade also has to be, I should say, manifested in maybe an entrepreneurial goal.
Yeah.
Now, I have a friend
Make it your
that
career.
became a plumber, and he started as an apprentice. He does more work on the golf course because he's figured it out. And after 20 years,
Networking.
he got his own
Right.
But that's what it's
business,
about.
got contracts, the same thing. So now he's the beneficiary of it. We had a conversation years ago. I didn't ask him for any money, but I said, hey, man, no, I'm going to tell you why. Because I said, hey, you know what? Your pipeline should be second chance offenders. This was back when we started understanding how it was so difficult for even people that had paid their debt to society to get trade affiliations and accreditations.
Yeah.
And he started doing that a while back. So he finds people that really, are coming out, starting fresh. He takes them under his wing and brings them into trade, and they can work with him where other people go, oh no, you have, this on your record or something like that. And he's getting really
It's
good
given opportunity.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to flip the script on yourself.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because you don't have to do one thing for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like I said, I went from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and then when I left there, I wrote 5 books that have been published. I developed the sistership, sister chat, the ladies' room. Giving women the opportunity to have a voice.
Right.
And I'm thinking about some other things now. So don't be afraid to change course when you think it's time.
Yeah,
And some people stay in one place all their lives and they never think about moving on. But then there are other people who say, hey, I'm ready for something else.
Right.
And they go on to do something else, and then they go on to do something, and it keeps them feeling alive.
That was me. I wanted to have my own company since I was youth.
Yeah.
I always said I didn't even think about school. I just wanted to work. I wanted to have my own company, and I always wanted to run my own company. So yes, being in specific fields gives you that opportunity to say, you know what, this is mine.
Right.
I achieved this, and now I can help others achieve that. And that
Right.
comes with the mentoring, the networking, and still having the goal set of what you wanted to do.
It's
Absolutely.
passion.
And never
It's
lose
passion.
yourself.
Yeah.
Because when I left North General Hospital, Nevia Salas, I always think about Nevia. She said to me, I remember when you came into the hospital and as you rose in the ranks, you never changed. I said, because my accomplishments were my achievements. They weren't who I was. Okay. I never got it twisted. Okay. Because I had accomplished X, Y, Z. It didn't mean that I now got caught up in those accomplishments and lost myself.
You know, you don't
Don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. Be who you are and be happy with yourself.
And that's
humble.
stay humble.
Stay humble,
Last
exactly.
thing, and losing yourself in the stress. I wanted to quickly touch
Right.
on this stress and the one thing is that you don't want to be in an environment where you don't feel that you can flourish.
Absolutely.
When you feel that you're not valued,
Absolutely.
when you feel that you have nothing to give because it's not being respected or
Right.
viewed as what you're able to, what you're giving.
Right.
It adds a lot of stress.
It really does.
They say jobs add stress. Yeah, job adds stress, but you know what? We have the option to choose. We have to just figure out the timing of those choices.
Right.
We might have to stress for a minute.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To
Right.
then to push us to that next level to say, I need to figure this out because I can't.
All
keep
stress
doing
ain't
this.
bad stress.
No, it isn't. All
Mhm.
stress ain't bad stress. Sometimes it's teaching you
Right.
how to operate in certain environments.
Absolutely.
And it's teaching you a lesson.
Yeah.
However, if it's prolonged and the lesson is learned and whatever have you, it's time for you to make a change.
Move on.
Can I testify to
Yes.
that? And I think, I've been with the company that I've been with for 6 years. And again, I came in and I had what I'll call a dream job, right?
Mhm.
Things were going great. I really loved it. I got to see the world. Long hours. It was
Mhm.
it was quite cumbersome, but I loved it. So
Mhm.
that's where
Right.
when
It's
we
that
were talking
balance.
earlier,
Right.
that job became, it
That
wasn't
balance.
a passion, but I was learning.
You were
I was
learning.
flourishing.
Yeah.
But again, and it's full circle to the things that I was saying. It wasn't the job. It became the management of the
leadership.
job. Because I didn't leave, 60% of the group left. So I was right because I was one of the first ones. I said adios because I didn't see the sustainability of it. Now I say that to say, now I'm in a role where I've done well, but there's a stress level associated with it because I'm done. And in the corporate world, it is turn and burn. But what I've learned is that you have to know when is when there's no more, I'll say, there's no more spark or there's no more ability for you to thrive.
Right.
That may
Exactly.
be different
Right.
from the
Right.
company's management, but I
Right.
will give everyone an admonishment. You can't just say, that's it.
Mhm.
I can't right now because of the obligations and my strategy just walk away.
Yeah.
So every day I have to make sure that I'm programmed to be professional and still keep the same flame to provide the same level of performance.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
That is stressful.
Mhm.
Steph may hear me talk. She's, what is that sound down there talking? And there's nobody there.
Talking to
But the
yourself.
point I'm making is that you have to make sure that you see the higher
The bigger picture.
picture.
Yeah.
I can't, I've been inclined to say, well, I'm going to just walk away. Well, that's not financially feasible.
Right.
Right.
You know?
You gotta be
You
smart.
gotta know. You
Gotta
gotta
be
know.
smart.
Yeah.
You gotta know when is when,
Right.
and that's really what it comes down to.
Correct.
Again, when is when, right? So a couple things because we're winding down. We're a little just a tad over. Quickly, job versus career. I would say this: anything you get into, just make sure that you work with credibility, integrity, passion, love for what you do, learn and teach
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
And all those things, if you do all those things, you're going to be in a better position. Whatever you choose that path to be, you're going to be in a better position. If you want to be an entrepreneur, learn how to be an
That's
entrepreneur.
right.
If you want to work in corporate America, make sure, again, all this, you have to network, you have to kind of move around and experience different things. Don't put yourself, peg yourself in a specific hole because people are looking your skill sets. Think about your attitude. Make sure you're managing the people appropriately.
That's
People are watching, people are learning, and they're going to know exactly whether they want you to be a part of their organization or not. If
Absolutely.
you're an entrepreneur, customers are going to want to know whether they want to deal with you or not. So just be very mindful of how you operate in many different environments, because people are watching. And let me tell you, technology, social media is
They're
the
on
biggest outlet
They're on it.
for how people are actually looking at
They're
you
being viewed.
and viewing you as a person, as an individual, and how you operate in different environments. So with that said, I want to say thank you all. This is the Sistership Network. Every
Yes,
Sunday,
it is.
Sistership Sunday. Thank you, Lady K. Thank you, Lady S. Thank you, Mama C. Thank you, DJ Jersey, Darren Johnson. And this is your girl, Steph Fire. Thank you, Gynesis Radio, Terry Pickering. We will be here every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Peace.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. It's a done deal.
We need to do a part two.
We do. This could lead
I
into
mean,
many.
there's so many
Whole
layers.
lot.
to
So
it.
many
So
layers.
you can even do a couple. You can even do a series.
Yes,
You wanted
on
to.
jobs versus career. Yeah, absolutely. Because if there is, I mean,
Open
you
up
would.
guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Where
tools
you
I can
could
give
do it.
too.